Hello everybody, welcome to another Versus Video Deck Tech. CVM here, joined once again
I'm BBD.
by BBD and his special voice. And we are battling some sweet legacy action for you.
Yeah.
Grand Prix New Jersey is coming up here in a few weeks, but we recently had Legacy Champs last week at Eternal Weekend, so we want to get a jump on the format now. And I'm playing this sweet, I want to call it a new deck, but it's not really a new deck, it's just Punishing Maverick. The deck's been around for a very long time, but hasn't seen a lot of play recently because of cards like True Name Nemesis and all the combo decks are kind of pushing it out. But as of right now, the format is just Delver of Secrets and Treasure Cruise, so Punishing Fire seems like a good card.
It definitely does, and this deck is like a good Punishing Fire deck because you have access to Knight of the Reliquary to find Grove of the Burn Willows.
Yep.
And you also have Acceleration to basically ramp you into being able to punish multiple times a turn.
Which is pretty sweet. And we do have some Return to Ravnica Block All-Stars here in the deck with Domri Raid and Voice of Resurgence, which both seem a little interesting at first for Legacy, but when you think about how the games are going to play out against these blue-red Delver decks that are everywhere, both of those cards actually seem pretty sweet.
Yeah, Voice of Resurgence seems like a huge beating. It's just a guaranteed 2-for-1 against those decks, and then Domri with especially with a Knight out there or something is just going to be like a big beating. Being able to make your Knight fight a Swift Spear or a Delver or whatever just gives you another piece of removal or a source card advantage.
Which is exactly what you need against these decks. The interesting angle that I like how this deck is attacking the Delver Menace is with Punishing Fire and cards like Domri and Swords to Plowshares. So when you're playing a deck like this, you have Knight of the Reliquary, you don't really want to be playing things like Rest in Peace or just try to attack Treasure Cruise directly. But if you just kill all of their creatures, then they just really have no way to beat you. So you can just kind of exhaust their threats with a card like Punishing Fire, since they don't really have a lot of ways to actually interact with it.
One thing I want to note about this deck is one of the focal points of Maverick decks is Thalia, Guardian of Thraben. There are 0 Thalias in this deck.
Correct.
The reason for that is Punishing Fire, essentially. But yeah, it's definitely interesting to note that this is much different than this looks like just a standard Maverick deck, but it's definitely very different because most Maverick decks are built around Thalia, and this is not playing it.
Absolutely. We do have the standard. We have some Mana Accelerants, a Noble Hierarch, a Birds of Paradise to go along with our Punishing Fires. We do have the 4 Green Sun Zenith, 4 Mother of Runes, a little bit of a toolbox for our Zeniths with Scurbranger, Voice of Resurgence, a Scavenging Ooze, a Pride Mage, and a main deck Gaddock Teague, which is definitely pretty interesting. The card isn't going to be completely dead since it does shut off Treasure Cruise. They might only be casting it for 1 mana, but it actually costs 8. So,
yep, and it also shut off some super powerful cards in Legacy like Green Sun Zenith and Batterskull.
It does shut those off.
Yeah.
It shuts them both off. But I can always use Domri to fight my Gaddock Teague off and then cast my Batterskull if I need to.
True.
We do have 3 Stoneforges to go along with our equipment package, a Jite and a Batterskull. We do have a Council's Judgment in the deck, which I do like. There's actually another one in the sideboard because True Name Nemesis is a pretty big problem for a deck like this. We want to try and control our opponent's resources and just win with the giant Knight of the Reliquary. But True Name can just block Knight of the Reliquary all day long. So having a way to get rid of it is good.
Yeah, or if you put a Batterskull in the True Name or something, or if they put a Batterskull in their True Name, then they get to attack and block every turn. And
yeah, it's not looking very good for us. And then once we go to the land suite, the other thing that I really like about this deck is that it just plays a bunch of lands.
Yeah.
So I really like Legacy decks that play a lot of lands, have access to a lot of mana. The spells are all really powerful. A lot of times you're just going to lose games when you can't cast your spells, so playing a deck that plays a lot of lands is always something that I enjoy. And because of that, we also have Knight of the Reliquary and some utility lands, Maze of Ith, a Karakas, a Horizon Canopy, 3 Wastelands that we can use, and then a Dryad Arbor that can either just surprise block a Dark Confidant, can pick up some equipment, it just acts as another accelerant for our Green Sun Zenith, just playing like a Llanowar Elf. It's just a very good card.
yeah, and you can fetch it too, or Knight of the Reliquary for it. One other thing I want to note is Mother of Runes also helps against True Name Nemesis as well. You can't block the True Name, but you can use Mother to push through a Knight or some other creatures.
Which is pretty sweet. Another really neat interaction is Dryad Arbor is a forest, and we can use it with Scurbranger to return it to our hand to untap things. So you'll see that will be used in the Elves deck. not only so much with Dryad Arbor, but just like Wirewood Symbiote, bouncing creatures to prevent things like GTA from getting counters on it. We can actually do that in this deck as well with Dryad Arbor and Scrub Ranger.
Yep, so if they attack with a Stoneforge Mystic with a Jit, you can block with Dryad Arbor, untap your, use your Knight of the Reliquary, untap it with Scrub Ranger by bouncing the Dryad Arbor, and then they don't get counters on their Jit, and you got, to untap a guy.
That seems pretty cool.
Yeah.
So this is the main deck. Let's go ahead and take a look at the sideboard and see what kind of options we have in an interesting deck like this. And here we are with the sideboard for the Punishing Maverick deck. As we can see, there's a lot of one-ofs, which is something that we can use when we have a deck like Maverick that has something like Green Sun Zenith. So we can kind of diversify the cards that we're sideboarding in. But we also have like Stoneforge Mystic and just a bunch of things that makes us want specific cards that attack specific decks. So we do have 2 Path to Exile, just as more removal spells when we need more removal spells. So against the decks that have like Tarmogoyf in them, you also want more removal against like the Elf combo deck. Just ways to get rid of opposing large creatures because we don't really have any way to push through them.
Yep.
We have 2 Choke, which is very good against all of the combo decks in the format for the most part. Sneak and Show, High Tide, Omnitail, any of those types of combo decks. But it's also, I think, going to be very good against the blue-based Delver decks that are being popularized right now, especially the ones that don't have Deathrite Shaman in them. It means that they're only playing a handful of non-island lands, and there's no wastelands, so we're really going to be able to lock them out most of the time.
Yeah, Choke's also fantastic against things like Miracles or just most blue decks just in general, to be honest.
And then we have 2 Red Elemental Blasts as just further ways to prevent a True Name Nemesis from hitting play. It's good against the blue-based combo decks. It counters and stops Jace, which could be a pretty big problem for this type of deck. And then we get into just a bunch of one-ups. So we have a Tabernacle, which is going to be good against like Elf combo or against like a Death and Taxes style deck, just something that's going to try and swarm the field with creatures.
It's also good against Maverick. They have a lot of creatures, so
yeah, it is pretty good against Maverick. It's definitely unique that it's here in the sideboard, but I can see situations where you might want it.
Yeah.
A Sylvan Library is just a way to generate card advantage. It's very good against like the Thoughtseize Hymn to Tarak decks. Thrun is good against decks that want to counter your stuff. We have a Life from the Loam, which goes along with your Wastelands against like another deck with a bunch of non-basics. So something like Shardless Bug, any of like the 3-color Delver decks, Loam is going to be very good there. Sword of Fire and Ice, just an equipment to help augment our creatures, especially with blue and red being so popular right now. Sword of Fire and Ice is just continuing to go up in stock as it just as long as we can have a creature live with it, we basically can survive all of their removal, attack through all their creatures, and then pick off their creatures when we can act.
It also turns your Stoneforge into a way to get through True Name Nemesis.
Yep, which is pretty sweet. We do have an Elspeth, which is also good against any of the bug decks, any of the attrition style decks. Another Gadok Teeg to stop the combo shenanigans. A Scavenging Ooze is a way to interact with our opponent's graveyards. And then another Council's Judgment to kill cards like True Name Nemesis. It's also good against decks that have like 4 Jaces in them, just as a way to get Jace off the board.
Yeah, because Jace is definitely one of the biggest problems for a deck like this, where the Jace deck curves like removal spell, Jace, or like removal, counter Jace, and they stick a Jace on a empty board or only one creature on the board.
Yeah.
Then they can bounce your creature and like you have to try to build back from there. Punishing Fire helps a lot, but it is nice to have more ways to deal with that.
Yeah, which is one of the reasons why I think that this deck is kind of poised to come back is those Jace decks are very weak to these Delver Treasure Cruise decks. So something like this is going to one up the meta by preying on the decks that are popular, because the decks that were popular against this deck are being pushed out.
Yes.
So that is the sideboard deck tech. I believe you're playing Blue-Red Delver.
I am. I'm playing the list that Kevin Jones won the Legacy weekend.
Champs with?
Yeah, the Legacy Champs with. Still just very similar to the same Blue-Red Delver deck that Bob Huang won the Open in New Jersey.
Yeah, Worcester, I think it was.
No,
Edison.
It was Edison.
Yeah, the very first one.
The very first one with Cons, and that deck's been putting up a lot of very good performances since then.
In every format.
Yeah, in every
Blue-Red
format.
Delver's, like, people were saying it was the best deck in Vintage.
Okay.
This last weekend. Like, just Blue-Red Delver with like fast mana and Treasure Cruises and Gush.
So, yeah, I mean, the deck's obviously super powerful. We'll see if it can hang with CVM's deck here. Maverick is typically a good matchup against these kinds of decks, but is Treasure Cruise going to be enough to push it forward?
It probably will be. That card's real good. So let's jump in and find out.